honey whole wheat bread has been fermenting for an hour. It's ready to receive a fold. I'm going to dust my board, remove my dough, gently elongate it, and then fold it like a business letter, and then again in half. I'll permit the dough to rise for 1 more hour before it's ready to divide. My honey whole wheat bread has been fermenting for 2 hours. It's ready for dividing and pre-shaping. I'm going to dust my board, and I'm going to show a variety of shapes today. So I'm going to begin by portioning 7 pieces of dough for producing a shape called couronne bordelaise. This is a really show-stopping shape, but it's fairly easy to produce. So I'm going to take these little pieces and I'm just going to lightly round them to get good gluten alignment on here. Nice skin. And I'm going to let those bench rest for 20 to 30 minutes on a lightly dusted board. I'm going to portion off the rest of my dough for a full-size loaf, roughly 550 grams. So I'm just going to lightly round those, drawing my 4 corners in before tucking the dough under and lightly rotating it on the table to get a nice skin to form. I'll allow these to bench for 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to begin by taking one of my 7 rounds, flattening it out well, and then I'm going to roll it out as thin as the dough will let me. It should be about 1/16 of an inch. I didn't put any flour on the board because having the dough stick slightly helps me stretch it a little bit better. And I'll let it bench here for a moment while I final shape round my additional rounds, and then I'll roll it another time. It's important that I round it tightly without tearing the skin at all. If I'm tearing the skin, I'm allowing carbon dioxide to come streaming out of the dough, and my overall volume won't be nearly as nice. I'll go back to my first piece that I had rounded. I'm going to elongate it a little bit more. So I'm stretching it very, very thin. So I want to pull the dough down so that it evenly rests on the base here. I'm going to take each of my rounds and put them in evenly spaced, seam side up. From here, I'm going to take a paring knife and I'm going to very gently slice through the dough, creating triangles at each of the rolls. I'll take each of these pieces, pull it back over and onto the roll that I have created, so it'll tuck right into the seam of each roll. Now, optionally, I could have made the round that I rolled out and put in here 100 grams instead of 90 grams, and I'll see this flap in a more pronounced way. I'm going to take this dough now and I'm going to allow it to proof for about an hour and a half. I'm going to form these into a shape called batard, and I'm going to allow them to proof on a heavy gauge linen cloth called a couche. I'm going to take the presentation side down and gently degas the loaf. I'm going to take my top 2 edges and fold them over to create a triangle. I'll take the top, the head, pull it down and sandwich it in, and now I'm going to take my thumb and press in with my left hand while sealing with my right for a total of 2 times before I go ahead and I tighten up the seam real well. So the goal of this shape is to have nice tapered ends and a fat belly in the middle. I'll allow it to proof seam side up on my couche at 75 degrees in a slightly humid environment. My honey whole wheat loaf is done proofing. It's now ready to bake. For the couronne bordelaise, if I just touch the side, it'll hold the impression of my finger. All I have to do for this one is gently turn it out, refine its shape if it came apart at all, and turning it out, and it's ready to go. For the batards, I'm going to mark these. I'll show you two different marks. I'm going to give just a simple straight cut. This is probably my favorite cut. It looks very simple. It's a little bit tricky. You need to be a third of the way down from the top of the loaf. I'm going to go point to point, holding it horizontally. And I'm going to mark it kind of deeply and quickly. This loaf I'm going to mark like a honeycomb. So I'm going to make diagonal cuts from one end of the loaf to the other. And then I'll repeat, intersecting each of those lines. And I'm marking it fairly deeply. The second cut is always harder to do once that surface tension has been broken on the skin. I'm going to bake them at 450 degrees with some steam. The last 10 minutes of baking, I'll reduce the oven temperature by 10 degrees so that they don't over caramelize. I need to be mindful that caramelization will be very robust with the addition of honey in there. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this honey whole wheat loaf. For the entire formula, consult www.bakingwithhoney.com.